the state and to the Yes. Right, we good? All right, are they turned on?
The switch, just move it up.
Oh, yeah, now that's on. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone to this lovely July board meeting. Thanks for everyone that is in attendance here, and then thanks for everyone that is watching online. Hopefully the storms don't get too bad as they might be saying, but hopefully everything goes well. So welcome to everyone, and call this meeting to order if you would like to call the roll.
Ms. Bright. Here. Mr. Fisher's absent. Ms. Thomas. Here. Ms. Williams. Here. Mr. Lightfoot.
Here. All right, moving on to a moment of silence and pledge. Ms. Thomas.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Looking at the agenda, there was only one adjustment to what went out, and it was just a changing of dates. That was for the contract agreements for the board's consideration, item C1. And that was just to make sure that everyone was aware that the contract was for a 1-year agreement in that nature. So is there any other changes or adjustments to the agenda?
Can we, under the treasurer's number 3, pull that out and vote on that separately?
The request is, or what we will do is pull item 3, which is approved to join the Ohio Coalition for Equality and Adequacy of School Funding, out and vote on it separate. Any other changes? All right, just need a motion to approve the agenda as adjusted.
So moved.
We got Melinda as the first,
I'll second.
second by Kim. This is to approve the agenda as adjusted. If you want to call the roll.
Ms. Bright. Yes. Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Yes, motion carries, and those few changes are made. Moving on to approve the board minutes. This is looking for the June 17th and the June 28th.
So moved.
Melinda is the first,
I'll second.
Laura as the second. Anything worth discussing, changes, adjustments that need to be made? All right, hearing none, this will approve the minutes for the June 17th and June 28th meeting. If you want to call the roll.
Ms. Bright. Yes. Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot.
Yes, motion carried and the minutes are approved. Moving on to visitors' comments. When I checked at noon today, there was nothing on the online comments, just seeing if there was anything visitors wise. Okay, moving on. Informative reports and communications. We hit a lot of holiday vacations. So as you can see, a lot of the administrators are not here. Mr. Smith, we appreciate that you're here though. So, but moving on to the reports, those were all submitted. Majority of them had reports online. Hopefully everyone had a chance, but any questions in regards to elementary, middle school, or high school that Mr. Bloom could field from us? Any updates that they wanted to tell us?
No,
Okay.
nothing.
Anything we're looking at census wise for classrooms that would change anything staffing wise?
All right, nothing from there. VBEA highlights. I did not see anything and didn't hear anything accordingly. Teaching and learning reports. I didn't necessarily see anything, nor was I necessarily expecting to see anything this month, but any questions, Mr. Bloom? Okay. Somebody just tell me if they want to stop, so we'll just keep moving through. So maintenance, transportation, food service reports. Mr. Kelly did send us an email as well as his report was up that he unfortunately could not be here tonight, but wanted to be. Everything seems to be moving along as best as it can be due to weather and stuff like that, but the grounds are looking good, and I know that summer is a heavy time for them. So anything else to update or anything?
No, well, the projects are moving along. Really, the main thing that's coming up is the completion, trying to get that completed at our elementary school with the new pipes. It's moving along well. They are, I believe the projected date is to be done before September. So that would be fantastic, and hopefully that will cure the issue of spraying water on little people who walk by. So hopefully that'll do that. Other than that, things are moving along. Believe it or not, sports are starting up in 2 weeks. So that is already the discussion to make sure our facilities are up and ready for our athletic teams to come in.
All right. Nice transition. So athletics and facilities, anything to bring up?
The Commons project, painting is supposed to be completed by August 13th. Installation of all of the new tables and chairs and couch or bench seating will start August 16th. So that is moving along well, planned, ready to rock and roll with that. Also, the press box is a little behind schedule because of the sogginess of the rain, but the foundation has been laid. They are still anticipating that it's going to be done by the end of August. And so far with our light donation in the month of July, that's still going on and still raising money with the hopes that we can get that done by September. So we shall see.
Do you know how much they've raised already for this?
I think
For
with
the
the
matching?
matching funds, we're close to, I think, $7,000 or $8,000. So far.
That's good.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Technology report. So just so everyone knows, projects are going in the summer as is, and everything's on track. Superintendent's report.
I'd like to highlight that we have Dan O'Brinba and Tim Hamilton here tonight to do a presentation from Fanning and Howie to start talking and discussing our facilities plan. As mentioned on our plan on a page, we need to start talking about that and seeing what we want to do as a community. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Dan and Tim. The screen will come down. They will be presenting from up there. So if you want to go down and sit in the seats, feel free to do so. And I'd like to turn it over to Dan and Tim.
Just try to turn it on. Yes. Test. Yeah. Yeah. Test. Okay.
It's big. We're good.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not in the way. I'm not in the way. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, she's the fun one. Okay. Okay, well, thank you for inviting us and thank you for taking some time with us. Tim and I are going to talk about facilities planning and let's just get right into it. We'll do agenda. We'll do an introduction of ourselves in a little more detail and the company, and then we'll get right into process. And after that, we'll go through Q&A along with next steps then. Okay, Tim, you want to?
Yes. Good evening. I'm Tim Hamilton. I am a superintendent. I am not an architect. I work for Fang and Howie now that I've retired from both a small district, Marion Elgin, and then a larger district, which was Hilliard City Schools. And my main partnership with you would be all the community engagement and the bond issue assistance. The community engagement piece, I think, is vital to anything that you do when you start master planning. And my years of experience building the K-12 and helping with that K-12 at Marion Elgin, and then all the different projects that we did over the years in Hilliard involved the community each step that we moved forward. And before you do anything, master planning, anything from just having conversation to doing, actually moving forward with something, you really need to work on making sure that you're communicating with your stakeholders and making sure that it's very seamless and very engaging. So that would be my role with you.
Okay. Myself, I'm an architect. Gosh, I've been doing this my whole career. I've probably worked with over 100 school districts, mostly in Ohio. I guess I'd echo what Tim said. It's essential that we create a lot of ownership out there. And so we're going to be talking about a very engaging and transparent process. A little bit about the company. We've got about 100 staff, and this is all we do is school architecture. I'd say probably about 98% is K-12 and a little bit of higher ed. So 100% K-12 or 100% educational facility design. We are a full service firm, as indicated there in the first bullet. We do outsource a few specialties, but architecture, engineering, planning, all that is in-house. And the firm has been doing this for 60 years. If you look at the services, off to the left is the services we're talking about here for pre-bond services, as we call it. So that's master planning, assessment, evaluation, educational visioning as needed, and certainly community engagement. And then if you pursue a bond, we provide support for that. All that off to the right is what I was talking about in a way of in-house engineering and architecture, interiors, landscape, all that sort of thing. So in Ohio, we've worked with close to 200 districts, and about half of those were OFCC projects. You can see a map there. It's a little hard to see all the gray districts that we've worked in. And then off to the right, a question came up in one of our earlier discussions about who have we worked with locally. And so you see a blow up there that shows neighboring districts that we've worked with. In fact, we're just starting up with Bowling Green in community engagement, or will be soon. So our process, a simple graphic that just talks about the planning journey. We're always starting out here being where we're at, what we know about facilities, what we need to know, and just taking everything and just moving it to the point of there, but we try not to define there too quickly. We want to go through a process that helps us define what there is. Some people think we come in with preconceived notions, and sometimes it seems kind of obvious, but we like the process to work to go through all the steps to make sure we're covering all the bases. So the first step is collecting information. That's us gathering as much information as we can, and we'll talk about the detail of what that looks like. And then the connect part, that's the essential part of the community engagement and creating that ownership in the community, but certainly all the transparency of just sharing information. But we're also going to help or ask them to help us come up with solutions. So it's a very effective process. Now, after those first two steps of collect and connect, we're going to start, as architects and planners, we're going to start creating some options that we'll test out with that community group. And then after we're done with all that, we feel that, once those three steps are done very well and we settle in on solutions, then we feel far more confident moving forward with a campaign and a project. So the type of information we collect, building conditions, enrollment projections. There's key elements here that they're just essential for us to know. How many kids are we serving? How many are there special programs that we have to accommodate? Facility assessments, we'll go through that to make sure that we understand the condition of the buildings. You've got a site situation here that's a little compact, I would say, maybe a little crowded, but still, try to understand all the site conditions, the visioning I mentioned before, and certainly the Board of Education goals. Right? So the process includes creating a couple of committees, a core committee and a larger group, which is the Facility Advisory Committee. We set the number of meetings at 6, but it doesn't mean it's set in stone. It's just a guideline, okay? And the idea is if you're trying to recruit somebody for the committees, you want them to know how many meetings you're planning. If it's this endless number of meetings over numerous years and this sort of, you're not going to get people to turn out. But if you tell them in generally 6 meetings, we're going to have a master plan and a recommendation to the board, people are a little more likely to help out. And then there's a couple of community meetings that we also recommend. So who's in this small group, the small advisory group that we call the core committee? Usually about 6 to 8 people. Sometimes it gets a little bigger. But you see the list there, superintendent, 1 or 2 board members, which I feel is very important that those board members are on this advisory group as well as the large group. Facilities director, if you have one, they generally have the best understanding of facility needs. Certainly the treasurer, and then 1 or 2 community members, maybe more. Okay, at some point, if you go into a bond issue campaign, you're going to be looking for community leadership. Okay, it's not best, and nothing against Brian and any superintendent, it's just not best for them to lead the campaign. It really should be a grassroots effort, community members talking to community members. So what is their role? First of all, define the drivers, the why behind why are we even doing this? At some point, as you get into the campaign, you're going to want to know, people will ask you, why are we talking about this? Is it building conditions? Is it the curriculum delivery methodologies? Is it the state knocking on the door with a bunch of money and you have to make a decision? There's so many different reasons, but identify what it is for you. And so the other thing is just expectations, the goals, and certainly the timeline. There's good and bad times to run bond issues if you choose to do that. You certainly don't want to put it out there with other, say, an operating levy or a PI levy or something of that nature. So there's usually a good time to run those. Okay, and then the last thing is this small group is going to help define the larger group. So if you've got 8 to 10 people and each one invites 10, now you can see that group, the larger group, becomes pretty good size. So we say 40 to 80. Tim's always quick to say the more the merrier. We really don't mind how many. We want it to be a fair representation of the community. You'll see the listing of who we suggest in here. But then look at the second bullet. We also say less than 50% should be employees from the district. So in other words, let's not make this look self-serving, get as many community people in as possible. And anything you want to add in there, Tim?
Yeah, I would just say on this one, a couple of points that we work with districts sometimes when we start into this piece is we've done it before where we actually have split for the first 2 or 3 meetings into 2 groups and have staff come in like at 4 or 5 or whatever, and then have the community come in at a later time, and you can get more information and more angles to things. One of the things that happens in most districts is when you have staff sitting in meetings, your community will look at the staff because they think they're in that setting every day. So they know what's going on, and they listen to them instead of sharing sometimes their own thoughts. So we want to make sure that we get as much out of the community engagement piece as we can. One of the things I would share with you is we'll sit down because we'll want to do everything from looking geographically at the boundaries of your district to make sure that it's well represented, to age, to profession, to interest, to your civic groups, to your churches, to everything. What we try to do is get a great cross section of your community, because I always tell people everything for me when I facilitate, I like the people part. So everything's going to be yes. If you have a thought, it's yes, that's a great idea. That's a thought we need to take further along, because if there's one person in the group thinking that, more than likely in your community, there's 20 or 30 more that may have some of the same thoughts. So we want to make sure we cultivate all of that and make sure that we've covered it all, so that when we get to the end, nobody's saying, well, they never talked about that, or they didn't look at this, or whatever comes that way.
I'm going to go back to this previous group. When I said 1 or 2 community leaders, every community has a handful of people that the community just kind of listens to. They got high respect for and this sort of thing. It's great to get those people involved. If you've got them behind a master plan and a bond issue, it just seems to speak volumes. Okay, so I'll run through the meetings, and I don't want to belabor the details, but the first meeting is, and I'm not going to read each one of these bullets, but the first meeting is just a lot of sharing information. So it's, I think, Tim, you call it sit and get, right? Sit and get, which we're not too fond of, but they need to get caught up with everything that we've learned. Towards the tail end of them, we'll also talk about the OFCC opportunity. How much of an opportunity is it? And we'll give them all the information as far as timing of funding, the local state split, and things of that nature. And at some point, we're going to start to ask them questions. First of all, do we even, based on everything you know, do we want to pursue facility improvements, or is it just good enough? I've never seen people say after they know everything, it's good enough. But we still need to ask the question. The second thing is the OFCC opportunity. Oftentimes, if you're under, say, 20%, some districts just don't want to deal with having a partner at a table. You're a co-owner at the table. You have to get on the same page with them on every decision. In your case, I think you're about 7% participation from the state, but still, we have to vet that out, ask the question. It shouldn't be a burden on the board and Brian. Ultimately, it is, but it feels a whole lot better if you've got a lot of people saying, no, it doesn't make any sense, or yes, we definitely want to pursue it. You've already got that kind of backing. And then we'll do a few more questions. We'll ask them the same question about the drivers, the why. And this is small group discussions. We'll talk about their perception of the greatest needs of the facilities, but we also want to know what kind of obstacles are out there. Meeting 2, we try to get them out into the building so they have firsthand knowledge of what they heard in meeting 1. It gives them more credibility when they're out talking to the community. So as we do a tour, usually led by a building principal, we come back and just kind of process, what have you seen? How does that match up with what you've heard and things of this nature? We'll go back to ranking some of the things we talked about in these questions in meeting one.
Flip it back to one for a second. Ladies.
Okay.
The other thing that I'll point out, because again, I'll work the people part of the community engagement piece, but small groups are going to be important once we get moving, and you'll see that colored number on the table. We want to make sure, I'm very left-handed and very right brain, so we end up color coding things, because what happens is your neighbor or your neighborhood walks in together and they all think they're going to sit at the same table because they'll have the same thoughts and the same familiarities and all of those kinds of things. And what we really try to do is try to get people to move and be sorted out differently every time they come in, so that they're hearing and talking to different people in your community, so that when we're ready to go, there are a lot more, there's a higher comfort level with the conversations that go on. And the small groups really help because it engages the people, and then they're more likely to come back and they feel like they're sharing with you, because the other piece that we'll make sure happens is all of this will be transparent and be on a website that will help you work through, so that your community as a whole knows where we're at.
Okay, so meeting two, again, building tours, and we process information from the previous meeting, process information from the tour. The last bullet there, I want to talk about that just a little bit. Not too many people generally in a community have had opportunities to see many other schools. If they do, it's usually going to a sporting event or something like that where they see the gym, but they don't really see the academic portion. So we'll send out short little YouTubes that show how educational facilities have evolved and what some of the latest trends are and that sort of thing, just so they can experience that in some fashion. At some point, if this group wants to go out and do building tours of newer facilities, we can arrange that. But the idea is to kind of broaden their horizons. Anything else on two? Okay, meeting three, we talk a little, well, the educational visioning piece. We want them to understand where the district is in that vision. Probably a second tour. You've got two facilities. I would imagine we do one evening, one another evening. And again, continue to process information and make sure they understand what the district's vision is for curriculum delivery. And then that last bullet, I almost skipped over that. Begin to create options. So meeting number 4, we're trying to bring it all together by this point, by this meeting. So we start to create scenarios. We're reviewing everything that we've done. And we start to create options on master plans that we're going to test with the community. It may just be one, it may be 2 or 3. And then we also have some conversation about what are we sharing with the community. And it's usually pretty easy, everything they know. So we go into the community meeting and it's just that same sort of thing, getting everybody caught up with what we know, and then start to make suggestions on the recommendations that have been pulled together by that facility advisory committee. We gather input from this, these are just open meetings. Anyone's welcome to come to these. So we'll gather input, possibly there's something we haven't thought of. So the idea is, could this influence the direction of a master plan? Maybe. If so, we pull meeting number 5 back together. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, but I can say it after.
Okay. So meeting number 5, we process out what we heard in the community meeting. And if we need to change a master plan or change the direction a little bit, we do that. We have a second community meeting. Some people have not had, maybe didn't have the opportunity to come to the first one. Maybe there's some fresh information we're sharing. Anyways, it's important to have at least 2 community meetings.
And sometimes we can add in things for your district, like we have tried to very successfully to have high school and middle school and maybe a few alumni come and speak to the group. and talk about their experiences at Van Buren and what they've had so far, maybe what they would like to see, things that have really helped them. And I think most of your community would enjoy and get a lot of information out of those kind of activities. And then when it comes to the community meetings, a lot of times I call it a walkabout. Again, I hate for them to have to sit for very long. So again, with the same name tags and color coding, we can move everybody around in a room very easily. And we can look at all the different options and have people explain those options. And then we can give them sheets of paper and they can share their thoughts as they look at the plan, drop it in the box, and then we can move them clear around the room. So that you're getting input from all of the people in those community forums at the end of the event. So we can do a lot of things, customize a lot of different things for you based on where your community wants to go and how they want to view this.
Okay, so again, the focus here is trying to settle in on a master plan. There may be some discussions of phasing, if that's appropriate. Oftentimes questions about financing come up. And if that's the case, we try to have a finance expert attend this session. Meeting 6, this is your Facilities Advisory Committee, just essentially putting a bow on it, put their recommendations together for the board. Any questions? Now, the next part of it is assuming the board decides to move forward with some sort of bond issue. Tim's going to talk about how we can support that, but any questions on the process of community engagement, master planning? Certainly. I can't say every space, but I've seen a good part of it. Well, certainly the newer part is, you know, I don't want to get ahead of the process, but when you see a space like this, it's like, you're not going to take this offline. You know,
I have been through parts of it, and I would tell you as a superintendent, not from the architectural piece, because, you know, you're always going to have, after a few years, you're going to have architectural needs. As a superintendent, my first thought as I walk through some of the areas is, how are they currently delivering their curriculum? Because the curriculum delivery model that you're implementing should reflect the facilities and how the facilities can benefit those kids' ability to do what they want to do, whether it's workforce, career, you know, college, whatever it is. And you've got to have a flow of pre-K 12 now. So you have to look through a lot of different lenses. Some of these spaces like this, for the size of your district, is just awesome. But then when you get to, I think it's your cafeteria area in the front and some of the size of some of your classrooms and some of those kinds of things, that's one of the things that the architects would do as they start to assess the building needs. The other thing I'd share with you before I go into my section is, as a superintendent, I always tell folks, you owe it to yourselves, and pat yourselves on the back for your plan on a page and some of the updates on your goals for in your mission and vision statements and those kinds of things, because that's the whole package that needs to move forward. But I always tell folks that you owe it to your community to have the conversations, to engage in community engagement, even if you choose at this point not to move forward with anything. So on the table for us will be, let's have some good conversation, and it'll either be, we're going to have the same conversation in 3 years or 5 years, or we need to do something, you know, something based on what the stakeholders are telling us. And we can glean that from this plan.
yeah, part of what I look at is the OFCC assessments. I look at all the rankings of all the different categories, and that somewhat influences my thinking. You know, when you get past the point of 2/3 the cost of new, you start to say, why are we trying to maintain this? And then you do a quick walkthrough and it feels a little less than ideal from a functionality standpoint, from a connectivity standpoint. You know, in modern facilities, we talk about a simple word of connectivity. How do you do that? Is it purely technology, or is it visual? Is it physical? And are we talking internal connectivity or external? And to me, these facilities at that end are just, I don't know, I think if I was a teacher, I'd really struggle. The elementary is a little straightforward, but again, very traditional, okay? We still need to understand, is that the model? Education has shifted, okay? I don't want to get too much on a soapbox here, but the curriculum delivery methodology has shifted dramatically, okay? Years ago, when these buildings were built, it was teacher-centered, right? Teacher had all the knowledge. Line them up here. We're going to give you all this information. You're going to repeat it back to us. And I hope it goes well. And oh, by the way, you're all traveling on the same train at the same pace. Okay. That's not how it works. We've learned that it's important to be student centered, right? And so when you look at that shift, how have the buildings shifted with you? They haven't. Okay, so that's why we need to do a deep dive and understand all these things. And then, you want to go on to the next?
Do I get next?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, here, you can have it.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I think,
You keep talking.
I thought he was telling me I was getting on a soapbox or something. He's like, stop it, Dan.
I just said, I think I'm next, so I was going to take.
Yeah. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think to me, it's really important that our group is frequency building,
Right.
and that we're really going out there to say your feedback and what you're thinking. At the same time, you said it great, modern facilities, and that's not like we have it. So I mean, that's where I was curious as to.
Yeah, so again, create your vision and then match that up with what the community is willing to support and do what you can. Yeah, even the elementary, and I think the elementary is perceived as being a pretty solid facility. And I think it's because it's simple. You know, it's easy to find your way around and this sort of thing. The elementary can be modified to be more student-centered, okay? This one is just such a challenge from what I've seen, just because of the years of construction, the different levels, the stairs, I don't know, it feels a little cobbled up to me. I don't want to offend anybody, but you know, it just feels a little cobbled up and problematic. Okay, so it served it served well for many years.
But when you get to community engagement, you'll have everything from people celebrating 100 years, and our parents and our grandparents and everybody else have gone through here, and it has historical value. And one of the pieces that we'll make sure we hit on will be that whole historic piece.
One of the things we talk about when we get into kind of that topic is feeling versus facts. Okay, because people hang on to, oh gosh, we did such and such back. Well, okay, but look at the facts. You know, so it's a fun process. Tim's point about you owe it to the community to ask the question. Yeah, if I was a board member, I would insist on it. You know, do a reach out. If they say no, if the majority of the community says no, this is what we want, you've asked the question.
Okay, I'm left-handed and right-brained. I told you that once. I'm going to start down here. It's backwards, but it's the same way I open a book and cut my paper and everything else when I was a kid. One of the things I, again, will pat you on the back for is crafting your message. You've already started that, and I can't emphasize enough the fact that that's what you need to keep doing. Your community will start perking up to, oh, they are having conversations. They are wanting our input. They are being transparent in trying to do what's best for the kids that you serve here in Van Buren. So with that in mind, one of the reasons that I started working with Fanning and Howie after I retired from the active superintendency was the organization of the forces. Dan talked about all the different in-house pieces that were part of the architectural firm, but the organizing the forces, we've got a gal that you saw in the introduction, Rose, that had a conflict tonight, but she becomes our left and right arm, as many of you folks probably could name people in your district that serve that role here. But we have everything in-house, so there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. Your jobs don't change. You've got professions that you deal with in your private world and are busy, because I've heard parts and pieces of the roles you serve in your community. And then in addition, you're serving the community as board members. So there's times where we want to take the lead and keep you out of that piece so that we can organize you and move you forward in the way that will help your district. And they won't be coming back at a later point and saying, I remember when you said this or you said that, because we're saying it, we're running the community engagement and we're helping you move the message forward when we start into any kind of bond piece that you might at some point decide to select. So organizing your forces are important. Everything from me sitting down with you and saying, who are these folks that have served your community over the years very, very well? We all know them. We've all dealt with them. They're very well respected, as Dan said. How can we use them to either squeeze their opinions out, get a feel for what they're thinking, whatever the case might be? But the organization of the forces is something that we can help you do all the way through the original planning of the community engagement to the creation of a bond issue committee, if you choose to go that way. Planning your strategy, again, that's the same type of thing. We would sit down with you and basically hold your hand step by step, because I know when I did this the first time, I'd like to say I knew what I was doing, but a lot of it was just what felt right. What worked for me at Marion Elgin was just having conversations with the different stakeholders, being real. And I think you all have got to know that you're in a position where they've given you the trust to be on the board. So they're looking at you to lead, and planning that strategy is part of what we can help you do so that it does make sense to all of Van Buren once you're done with it. And then once we get through the planning of the strategy of how we're going to message and what we're going to do, is making sure that we craft the message so it's clear and people understand what it is you're asking of them. And again, that flows from community engagement. What are we asking them? What are we really asking them to do? The whys that Dan talked about, to crafting the message. If you decide to go with some kind of a money issue, it would be, what's the message? Why are we doing it? Why is it good for kids? So that basically covers that piece, but Fang and Howie is a full service from start to finish firm. All right, the campaign assistance, I think I maybe have talked with you a little bit, some of you anyway, but this I always find interesting, and we don't want to go into it too much, but I had to share the Van Buren registration piece because it's not really the same as some of other districts we've worked with. And if you look, 36% is in your 26 to 49 age group. In most districts, you find it down there where I'm at, on the bottom end, because your voters are always there. The only reason we're showing you that is because when you start looking at who you might want to include in your community engagement invites and pieces that you open up, you might want to keep that in mind. It's your school age kids, parents that are actively voting in your district, which is wonderful. But you need to make sure there's a cross-section of all of those, everything from your listserv of your alumni group that graduated last year from high school to any of the senior citizen groups that you can connect with, and everybody in between. So graphically, we can do all of this. Again, Rose can dig into this as deep as you want, but it's a way to look at the election history and see who are those stakeholders that are actively working in your community.
Tim, before you leave that, back up one slide, please. The third bullet down there, graphics, get the message out in a variety of ways to reach all people. Parents want to hear one message. Empty nesters want to hear another message, okay? The parents are going to be interested in improving their educational environment for their kids. Parents or empty nesters might be thinking, I want my property value to maintain or improve, or who knows what they may be thinking. So there's different, we'll try to figure out what's the important message for those different groups. And that's part of that varied messages. Okay.
Okay, and this one is just a potential schedule. And the thing that you all need to understand is this is very fluent and very flexible, and I'm going to let Dan speak to that. But it just basically, as you look at the collect, the connect, the create, and the complete, gives you an idea of about what the shortest span of time could be for you to actively and successfully complete that section of the 4 Cs. And with that, the first possible thing for a solution we would suggest wouldn't be before 2022. And that, again, would be something that has to be determined at a later date.
Yeah, so we've talked about a lot of different steps along the way on this journey. And this is just a graphic representation of that. And I'll just echo what Tim said, that through some conversations with Brian, and it appeared that fall of 22 was probably the best date for you. But again, this is just an example. Any questions on the schedule? Any questions on campaign support? Tim, I don't think you mentioned it, but campaign support, there's a ton of things that we can do to help a campaign, but we also try to keep in the background. Community doesn't want to see us leading a campaign. So, graphics and things like that, we'll get you whatever you need. All the messaging, all the research. It's important for all of us to be successful here. But again, they don't want to see a consultant on the front side of this. So next steps, we love collecting information while kids aren't in the buildings. But if that's not possible, it doesn't matter. We'll find ways to get it. But that would be one of the first things that we would do, start touring the buildings, get a deeper understanding of those. Yeah, certainly the core committee needs to get put together, and we start to, we'll go back through the process, make sure they're comfortable with everything. Again, that's a template, so it's fluid. And then that committee is going to help create the larger group. I've got that bullet up there of meeting with OFCC. Maybe yes, maybe no. Do we have a few questions for them? Do we want them to update the assessments, things of that nature? We'll keep them in the loop until you say don't. Okay. And then determine how to share information with the community. I started off the presentation by talking about this is very transparent. So we really encourage setting up a website that connects to that has a link that takes back and forth between the facilities website and your school website. We want everybody to have access to it. So everything that we do, say meeting 1, all the information we share there, all the assessments, all the enrollment projections, things of that nature, we want everybody to have access to that. every PowerPoint presentation we do, all that kind of stuff. Any results that we get from our clicker exercises, our turning point exercises, all that stuff will be posted in there. I think that's pretty much what we've got. I hope we didn't take too long. Questions for us?
Is it okay if we get questions up there? So the audience can hear us. Yes. Are you okay? You don't need the screen anymore, right?
We do not.
Okay, so we're gonna flip back up there so that. picks up.
That's fine.
I'd suggest you walk instead of flip. But if you can flip, I'll watch. I'm gonna leave that up just in case we need to refer back to it. And then, I don't know if they can see any of that.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. I do have one question. I have to ask it, sorry. We gotta talk cost. So what is and how do these services, obviously, this is not by any means entering into we're gonna build a building or anything like that. This is solely for a fact finding is what I wanna call it, but really just gathering the information for us as to what the community wants. And it might be, like you said, this is what we have and go from there. So can you explain maybe a little bit about the price tag-ish when it comes to it? I know you don't have to give exact numbers by any means, but just a ballpark or an idea of how this gets funded.
As
You're
a
not doing it
super-
for free. I know that.
No, but as a superintendent, I would tell you that that's one of the negotiation items that needs to take place if you choose to move forward, but I'll let Dan talk to that one as an architect.
Well, I think you're saying there is a value to the service and so there is a cost. We try to be flexible on that cost. I mean, it's nice to receive some revenue for all the effort, and there's a considerable effort. It helps pay the bills and this sort of thing, but quite honestly, it's not how we make our living, so to speak. I mean, we want you to get to the point of a project. Okay, that's what we're really, that's everyone's goal here. So, the pricing on this has ranged all over the place. I think we were looking at something maybe towards a 25,000 range or something like that. I don't know that, again,
It's all negotiable.
Yeah, it's all negotiable, but that gives you kind of a rough idea.
I guess the more important question, not so much dollar. Okay, let the community know I do care about dollars. So when I say that, it's not about that. No. Is it time dependent as well? So if we come into a agreement with you, like you said, the earliest we're looking at of gathering this information, but I've been part of this where it might take an extra year on top of that for you to gather the needed information or for us to be able to be successful. Does that change that initial negotiation, or is this the price and we get everything until we make a decision, and then after that, depending on what that decision is and the success of that is where the other money comes in?
Again, I'll answer first and then he can do the architectural side. From the superintendent side, when we've signed on with school districts, I'm supporting school districts that we started this kind of community engagement piece 4 and 5 years ago.
Okay.
And the intent for me is because I enjoy this part. So I enjoy supporting the superintendents and the boards of education. The intent from my standpoint is making sure that they're moving forward their district in the manner in which they want to do that. So again, I would just tell you that there's different ways that the superintendent can work with any firm to work out some of those kinks and concerns.
So what's the right answer?
I-
Well, I'll tell you what we normally do, okay, but we can be flexible with you. What we normally do is we set an upside figure And as we get into it, we bill hourly against that, okay? And the idea is that if things go somehow remarkably quick, well, we maybe don't necessarily have to get to that maximum figure. But you, as a board, want to have a maximum figure. So if it requires additional effort and we feel that we're, starting to close in on something and it's important to continue, that doesn't mean we stop. If it ends up being a little bit of a lost leader, then that's okay. Again, we're trying to get you to the point of the big picture. And I think that's everyone's goal.
Absolutely. Thank you. No, that's exactly the answer that I needed to hear, at least. I think the community needed to hear as well. Any other questions?
Well, we appreciate your time. I know it's July and we always were hoping that the summer board meetings were a little bit less in length than the school year. So we appreciate you allowing us to share our thoughts with you this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Do you want this left on for your speeches?
Go right ahead, sir.
All right, moving on to the superintendent standing committee reports. Just to save a little bit of time, is there anything from any of the committees that
Personnel is up and active. We've got lots of work going on, and we will continue working on job descriptions because nothing says summer fun like job descriptions.
okay, I can't top that.
No, you can't. So I do have Karen Flanagan is going to be joining the facilities committee meeting and along with Ed May. Okay. So Ed May, Karen Flanagan will be our community reps. Anyone else is welcome to join us. But for right now, that's who we have. And then we're trying to meet with extracurricular at some point.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Hopefully by the end of the month is the goal.
Gotcha. And I don't have anything on the student achievement thing. So,
Okay.
so Mike.
I think that's fair report. All right, moving on. Any old business? All right, new business. First item up is the treasurer's report and recommendations. So would need a motion to approve items 1 and 2. Item 3 is going to be separate. So
I move to approve A1 and 2.
all right, Melinda's first. Kim is the second. All right. Jacobs, if you want to walk us through.
I'm going to spend a lot of time on my my monthly finance report. We have a little bit of a PowerPoint that I know the agenda says it's the mid-year review, but it's actually the end of year review. And it's for the close of fiscal year 21.
Would you like to stay up here and just look at the side screens?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Not
This is-
blinding anymore.
This is quick. I mean, it's gonna be quick. I'm just gonna give you some highlights of,
Is your mic on?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Stay right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay up here. I just want to, before we get started on this, while Brian is setting this up, I just want to kind of reflect a little bit on how far we've come in the past year. I was thinking about it, over the past week, but last year this time, we still had remote meetings and we were in the middle of the pandemic, and we were just completing the performance audit and getting results from that. A levy renewal was looming. We have 2 new board members since that time. And we've been working hard for the past year to realign our resources to provide better services for our students, to provide safer facilities, and to provide the community with a school of choice. So it's been a very busy year, very busy. Are you in, you're in charge of the button down there? Okay.
Yes,
so-
I am.
Okay. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I know that you have seen this slide before. These are the results for fiscal year 21. We have actually had significant changes this year in the revenue slide. Overall, we've had nearly a 12% increase in our revenue over 2020, which is amazing. The biggest movement has been targeted on local taxes. Much of the shift in that section is focused on board of revision decisions. And the interesting piece about this slide is that there was absolutely no increase in state support. We actually had a reduction of over 4.5% on state support for the revenues for fiscal year 21. So when you think about overall that increase of 12% and nothing came from the state, and that's a very interesting figure. And I apologize if I get more excited about it than anybody else.
Oh, I'm excited too. I think we're all excited.
The next slide is our a breakdown of our fiscal year 21 expenses. These final results show nearly a 1% decrease over fiscal year 20. And another interesting piece about this is that the salary and fringe benefit reductions were nearly 7.5% together. So it shows how we actually made some steps and made some progress in aligning the staff resources with the enrollment in the district. The largest increases were in purchase services. There was definitely a focus on the amount we paid out in ESC costs. So those additional services that we're purchasing from the Educational Service Center, and also the foundation deductions. All the unfunded mandates are actually posted through that purchase service line. So that piece was really our biggest increase in our expense this year. But we did make those steps forward. We made some progress on the staffing levels. And actually it's a good thing that we did. So the next slide, this is just basically a how did we do slide. So these are just the cash balance trends. And these trends are moving all the way from 2014 to 2021 close. In the last 8 years, this is the first time we've had a positive cash flow. And that's amazing to me. This year, we've had a positive cash flow of just over $210,000. So when we kind of started this quest, to use Brian's word, when we kind of started this quest of improvement on the finance side, in 2019, we had a $1.9 million plus deficit spend for that year. So moving from that point to the shift that we've had in the positive cash flow, that's a shift of over $2.1 million. So that's a sizable shift in just 2 years. So I'm thrilled to be able to report that to you tonight. The next slide is just simply another graphic illustration of the revenue comparisons and just a breakdown with some actual numbers attached to those. I think the biggest message from this slide is between fiscal year 20 and 21, it's a $1.3 million shift. And a sizable portion of that is either local taxes or direct payment agreements that happen through the Board of Revision process and those positive decisions that came from Board of Revision. And the next item is the expense comparisons over the same time frame between 20 and 21. Probably the biggest shift to note here, we talked about the salary and fringes, but you are seeing an increase there as well in our capital outlay. And that is attached specifically to a change in strategy and how we're using our PI money. So some of those expenses that we need for technology to keep us up and running are coming out of the operating dollars and shifting from a large chunk coming from that permanent improvement pot of money. So that's a change that we've focused on over the last couple of years.
Okay, this is my section because Don kind of touched on it when I was getting set up. So this was just brainstorming everything that happened this school year and just kind of putting it down. And this doesn't even touch it. There's another slide, by the way. There's a lot more than just this. But thinking back through this year and everything Don said when we first started the year, you have a new superintendent, you have a pandemic, you have opening of school, you have all the different models we went through. You went through quarantines, contact tracings, virtual learning, all the temperature checks to get into our school, everything that happened. And then when testing kits arrived, the big discussion was, should I get tested? Or what do you think? And they were asking me. I am not a doctor. So I referred them to Nurse Judy. Thank goodness we had Nurse Judy. She was golden to help us through this process because everything was at a fast pace. When you think about curriculum items and everything that goes along with that, just this year off the top of what we're talking about is organizational charts happen. We have OPSI negotiations. You have financial facilities, extracurricular committees. You have a quest, plan on a page, job descriptions were done, evaluations are being done. We brought special education and gifted services in-house. Communication was improved, and we have a commons project, and that's just a few of our items going on so far this year. What's moving forward is definitely what's been shared with the community on our website, and that is our plan on a page and quest. That is driving everything. And it's amazing that the year's over. It seems like literally I've been here 8 years and a lot has been accomplished. And I am extremely thankful to everyone in Van Buren for allowing it to happen, because without the community, without the parents, without the students, without the amazing staff, and I mean all staff, from our cafeteria to our administrative assistants, to our aides, to our teachers, to our bus drivers, everyone did a phenomenal job at Van Buren and the board. You are dealing with the new superintendent in a pandemic. Congratulations to you for making it through me. So it was an exciting year. And I'm looking forward to next year. And working with Dawn has been fantastic. She's been very patient and has helped guide many of these committees. So it's definitely been a team effort. So I want to thank everybody for their help, because I think we did a lot for our students this year, and I'm looking forward to next year.
It's a big year.
And that leaves to any questions that any of you might have. You're welcome. We good? All right.
Thank
We're
you.
good.
Yep.
Set the expectation high, so you're gonna have a lot to get for next year.
That's true.
I'm okay with that.
The only other item attached to the finance report tonight is the contract for the K-12 forecasting services.
Any questions about those two items? Further discussion? So we're looking to approve the treasurer's report as well as the K-12 contract. Do you want to call the roll?
Ms. Ebright? Yes. Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Leffe?
Yes, motion carries. Those items are passed. Moving on to item number 3. Looking for a motion on the approved to join the Ohio Coalition for Equality and Adequacy of School Funding.
So moved.
We got Melinda as a first. as the second. Discussions, questions, comments?
So I wanted to pull this out because I had a few concerns about the organization. I do understand vouchers are harmful for public school districts. But when I start looking, just my quick overview of this organization, I get a little worried. Some things are a little disjointed. There's a Facebook page, 2 different websites, different things are said on different websites. And I get worried about, is our district being held to the same importance of a larger district? And when I read on the one website, their mission statement, and it says, the last part of it goes, without diminishing opportunities for students who reside in high capacity districts. And I get concerned by reading that because we are not a high capacity district. And I understand that it's a relatively small amount to join, but are we getting a benefit that's comparable to how much we're spending? And are we just supporting these high capacity districts that the one website references?
And that's a good question. I mean,
It
looking
is a
at
good
it,
question.
that is the one concern. Not just that, but looking at it as a whole, this is going to a coalition. Vouchers are their main function, but that doesn't mean that they can't have something else. Now, in the contract, it is written that of the $2 per people, $1.50 of it goes solely for vouchers. The other 50 cents goes for coalition costs and fees. So that lends itself to the next mission or whatever that they're doing or going from there. I don't think that our name being on it would be negative. I don't see them going in another direction with something, but once you're part of it, you're a part of it. And the way it looks, this would be an annual renewal. It wasn't a one and done. Is that,
No, it's a one and done.
was it a one
Oh,
and
it's
done?
one and done.
Yeah, I think so, because I think, well, I'm not sure, but I think it's related to the litigation that they're bringing.
That was the one, that was the other part that I wasn't sure by the reading of it. I didn't know if it was, you had to do this resolution.
Is it
You-
time sensitive to this meeting?
No, so see what I suggested, because I mean, there are valid questions. Laura has valid questions. And I do not have the answers to those questions. So my recommendation would be to have someone come in, because I think someone came in and talked to the superintendents, right, Brian?
Yes, they did.
From Vouchers Heard Ohio. So I think we should reach out to them and have them come to the next board meeting if they can, and we can talk to them. I mean, there's no rush to do this, I don't think. So I don't have a problem with that.
We can decide to table it.
Do we have to finish the vote and then make a motion to table? Because we have 2 votes. Is that discussion? That's Robert's rules.
Technically, the motion is on the table.
So we have to vote the motion.
We have to vote that
Yeah.
motion. Yes. That is, that means
Okay.
we have to take, we really should call the roll. I mean, you can leave this on a motion with no action, and then that is
Yeah.
really
You can.
frowned upon because you're
Yeah.
supposed to circle back to it at your next. You're not supposed to move on to something else until this is closed. That is for Robert's rules. So really what we should do is vote it, however you feel to vote for moving into agreement with the coalition today. Is the motion on the table.
That's right.
That's fair.
Today.
So my opinion today is how we're voting. Yes.
Correct. All right, any other questions or discussions? All right, you want to call the roll?
Ms. Seabright? No. Ms. Thomas?
No.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Motion
Mhm.
by the representative from Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy of School Funding
to attend our next meeting to provide further information.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Linda, a second. So the motion on the table. Motion on the table is to invite a representative to from the Ohio Coalition for Equality and Advocacy of School Funding to the next meeting or the next meeting that they are available for to answer questions and then bring forth the whatever
Funding for exhibit.
the resolution, the voucher resolution.
Voucher
Yes.
resolution.
If you want to call a roll on that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I know.
Yeah, she's so right.
I'm writing. Ms. Seabright. Yes. Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Williams. Mr. Lightfoot.
Yes, motion carries. So we will extend an invitation to their representation at the August board meeting or the next board meeting they can attend.
I will make a motion.
So I have Kim with a motion to move into executive session to discuss the employment and compensation of public employees per the Ohio Revised Code. I will second it. Any item, not anything to discuss. We will be coming and taking action on several items after executive session. So if you want to call the roll to go into executive session.
Ms. Seabright.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Williams. Yes. Mr. Lightfoot.
Yes, motion carries into executive session at 8:16. No. I will push the other one. No, I just meant in general, it's 8:16, so board meeting is not going to be done in an hour. We started at 7. No, 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 no. No, no, no. I could get this meeting done in an hour.
Maybe August, like maybe August.
up at 4 in the morning, really starting to hurt right now. There he is. They should be out, I would imagine, soon. Oh, Robert, I gotta give you that so people that doesn't walk away. Yeah. They walk away. Who knows where it ends up?
Here they come.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Robert. Yeah. I think it's true, it's just starting to set those expectations. I really do, because I don't think they've ever had it. That's me. Well, I think what you're planning, well, I mean, I think meeting with them weekly to start would be huge. To start building that relationship again, you know? I think.
There's always somebody who wants to prove that they're smarter. You'll find us out.
I default getting this. Funniest from us is a bad.
In live is not as bad.
Am I getting this by default?
All right.
Okay.
That was me.
That was something.
Sorry.
I got us out of executive session at 8:57. All right, moving on. Superintendent's recommendation.
Pretty standard, and except we have the official resignation of Miss Shelley Caney and Elisa Yanovich is with the high school, both big losses, and wanted to thank them for their service. They were phenomenal the time that I saw them this past year. You also have your athletic hires. You have some food service hires. You have a high school student parent handbook. You also, on number 7, which is kind of exciting, you do have the senior trip where they're actually planning to go to Chicago, Illinois, which is fantastic. And it was updated late, and I do apologize. Number 10 is the administrative and non-union classified salary schedules. Again, pretty standard, nothing unusual, and I can entertain any questions that you might have.
Can we, just
Okay.
a question on number 6.
Yes.
Can we do our very best to have graduation in the auditorium?
Location to be determined.
In the auditorium.
If I only knew Melinda's true beliefs, thoughts on this.
All right, any other questions? All right, I need a motion to approve items 1 through 10 of the superintendent's recommendation.
I motion. I second.
Okay. Laura's first and Kim as the second. Any further discussions? All right, if you want to call the roll on approving the superintendent's items 1 through 10.
Ms. Ebright? Yes. Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Lecter?
Yes, motion carries. Items are approved. Next item. Yeah. The next item is for the board's consideration. Item 1 is to adopt the tentative agreement between the Board of Education and the Ohio Association of Public Employees, Local 783, effective July 1 of 2021 through June of 2022. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's not sure why it still says 24.
I just want to make sure that that is, so it's a reflectant of July 1, 2021 through June 30th of 2022.
Correct.
Okay. Have Kim as the first. I will second. Is there any items discussion on it? All right, hearing none. This is to approve the tentative agreement with the Ohio Association of Public School Employees 783 through July 1 of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. Want to call the roll?
Ms. Ebright? Yes. Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Yes, motion carries. That agreement is adopted. Next item is to appoint a delegate and an alternate for the 2021 OSBA Annual Business Meeting on Monday, November the 8th this year. That will be at the Conference Center in Columbus. As it stands right now, that will be an in-person, not Zoom. So you get to go through the process of an in-person delegate meeting. So are there any volunteers?
I nominate Laura.
I second that.
Did you second that?
I did.
That was quick. That was very quick.
All right, so we are appointing Laura as the delegate because I don't want it. So that means that that'll be a 3-1 vote. And I say that Andy gets the opportunity to be the alternate. He is not here.
I second that too. Yeah.
Both of those, as per the last board meeting, were interested in our plan to attend the OSBA annual business or the OSBA Capital Conference. So that will be the case from there.
Yes, it is.
Not anything to take motion on, but the board in discussion would like to give you the recommendation to continue. What did we decide? The support in continuing talks with exploring and gathering information on the building as well as the public involvement when it comes to it with the presentation that was given today. But just offering my support to move forward with that. All right. Any other items to come before the board? Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I will so motion.
Kim is the first. One second. Linda is the second. I'm gonna call the roll.
Ms. Ebright?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Lightfoot?
Yes, motion carries. We are out at 9:04.
Good job.